Green Day have just released their latest album, Saviors, to pretty solid reviews, although one track in particular, One-Eyed Bastard, has drawn some criticism, and that the main riff of the song sounds very similar to Pink's 2008 smash hit, So What. I've also heard some other comparisons of Green Day, quote-unquote, ripping off other artists over the years, most notably to me, Motley Crue. So today, I figured let's take a look at all of the artists that Green Day has ripped off. And I say ripped off, but in reality, it's probably just a lot of influences coming through. Maybe they don't even know the song that it's being compared to, whatever the case may be. So really just having fun here. Anyways, let's go. First off on this list, like I mentioned earlier, it's One-Eyed Bastard from Green Day's new album, Saviors, and Pink's So What from her 2008 Funhouse record. I'll play these similarities here quickly, we'll briefly discuss, and move on to the next one. Here we go. Clearly, the similarities are there. There's no denying that, but for one, I highly doubt Green Day is ripping off Pink. Probably not even listening to her, if we're being honest. And honestly, the riff in general is just rather generic. I'm sure you could find a million other songs that sound somewhat similar. I'm also not really quite sure, as these two songs are completely different, but the One-Eyed Bastard riff sort of reminds me of Lay Down from Priestess, the band that was in, I think it was in Guitar Hero 3. Anyways. Also, as Justin Hawkins pointed out on his show, the Pink riff also has some similarities to Deep Purple's Black Knight, but really with that one, it's just the first second or two of the riff that kind of sounds like Pink's So What. But honestly, all three of these riffs in question really have the same vibe, to say the least. Next up, it's Green Day's Only a View from 1989 and Hüsker Du's Something in the Rain. And for the rest of this list, we're going to be going in chronological order in terms of Green Day's discography from here on out.
I wish I could tell you, but the words would come wrong.
Honestly, to me, this one feels like a little bit of a stretch. That being said, though, I have no doubt that Hüsker Dü was a huge influence on Green Day, but I mean, let's be real. How many songs out there have the same exact chord progression? There's another one or two on this list that the similarities in the chord progression. So, there's so much music out there these days that it really is hard to come up with something that is 100% original. Moving on, it's the middle section of Green Day's Christie Road from Kerplunk in 1992, and the legendary Smells Like Teen Spirit riff from Nirvana's Nevermind in 1991. Honestly, what can I say? Even the way that the drums come in on the Green Day song, holy shit. As I mentioned earlier, really just goofing here, not really saying that Green Day has ripped anybody off, but my God, especially given that Kerplunk released a year after Smells Like Teen Spirit, and that song was so huge, arguably the 80s hairband killer, as they say, and the song was pretty much everywhere. I'd have to imagine that they would have caught on to the similarity at that point, as it is pretty damn obvious if we're being real, but anyways, whatever. Up next on this list is Brain Stew from Green Day's 1995 record Insomniac, and 25 or 6 to 4 from Chicago's Self-Titled in 1970. Much like the last one, it's hard to deny that they weren't ripping this off. It's the exact same riff, just a bit heavier, but I get both songs are equally iconic, but Green Day certainly did nothing to hide their inspiration on this one. There's also a similarity in Led Zeppelin's version of Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, but it's kind of buried in that song, not really a focal point of the song at all, but a very popular riff nonetheless. Next up, it's Scattered from 1997's Nimrod and Sister Goldenhair from America in 1975. And for this one, we're looking at the vocal melodies in the verses of each song.
Well, I've got some scattered pictures lying on my bedroom floor. Well, I tried to make it Sunday, but I got so damn depressed.
Obviously, Scattered is a bit more heavy, I guess you could say. Not that Heavy and Green Day belong anywhere in the same sentence, but you know what I mean. And while Green Day's is certainly faster, these similarities are 100% there. Another one from Nimrod, it's Hitchin' a Ride and Stray Cat Strut from obviously Stray Cats and their 1981 self-titled. Very similar to the last one in terms of tempo, being the only thing that's a little bit different, but obviously still wildly similar. And on another note, who can't get down with some Stray Cats? Everything I've heard from them, I dig. I'm not really a rockabilly connoisseur or anything, but anything I've heard in the rockabilly world I'm into, I really need to check it out some more. Drop some rockabilly suggestions below if you have them. Moving on to the first of three from Green Day's Warning in 2000. It's Misery and the Doors' version of Alabama's song Whiskey Bar from their self-titled in 1966.
Virginia was a lot lizard from FLA. Show me the way.
I gotta say, there's something about both of the melodies in both of these songs. It's just so, I don't know, they have a really nice swing, but they're also kind of haunting in a way. I don't know, it's like something you'd hear in a circus or something. I don't know. Both songs are pretty cool though. Number 2 from Warning, it's Hold On, and I Should Have Known Better from the Beatles' 1964 album, A Hard Day's Night. I'm going to try to play the Beatles song, or just a brief clip of it, but I don't know. Everybody knows the Beatles are notorious for blocking videos and all that kind of stuff, so we'll see what happens. God damn, what is there to say? I'm not really a Green Day expert or anything, but I'd have to imagine that this is one of very few Green Day songs, probably the only Green Day song to have a harmonica in it, and this is what they come up with? Jesus Christ. Closing out Warning with the title track and another band from the 60s, it's the Kinks with Picture Book. All kidding aside, there are a ton of similarities across all of these songs, and the further in this list that we get, the more and more it's like, Jesus, where's the creativity? Holy moly. Moving on now to the first of a whopping 5 tracks from American Idiot in 2004. It's Jesus of Suburbia Part 2, City of the Damned, and the one that I briefly mentioned earlier in the intro, Motley Crue's On With the Show from their 1981 debut, Too Fast for Love. This was the first comparison that I had heard years ago, and at the time I was kind of shocked at how similar they are, and I guess Green Day and Motley Crue are not, I don't know if you'd really suspect that Green Day are fans of Motley, but after the rest of this list, it's really no longer surprising in the slightest, and it also makes sense that it would be this song, as Motley's debut album, Too Fast for Love, is most certainly their most punk-influenced record, so the influence certainly makes sense. Up next, Boulevard of Broken Dreams and the one and only Wonderwall from Oasis.
I walk a lonely road, the only one that I have ever known. Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you.
What can I say that hasn't already been said? I know this comparison is very, very well known. 2 legendary songs, 2 legendary bands, 1 chord progression. Maybe the last chord is a little bit different or something, but I mean, the verses between these 2 songs can be completely interchanged. It's insane. Here's a quick clip of a mashup that somebody did years ago that really, really hammers this one home.
I walk a lonely road, the only one that I have ever known.
Next up, it's She's a Rebel and Jawbreaker's Boxcar from 1994's 24-Hour Revenge Therapy.
She's a rebel, she's a saint, she's the salt of the earth, and she's dangerous. Gonna punk, and I'm telling everyone, second breath, but never was one.
Both bands are from the Bay Area and were active at the same time before Jawbreaker split in the mid-90s, before reuniting in, I think it was 2017. So very, very clear where the inspiration came from on this one. Moving on, it's Homecoming, Part 2, East 12th Street, and the French song from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts' 1983 album, titled Album. Yet another one that you absolutely cannot argue against, but it makes sense given Joan Jett's punk rock roots. And for what it's worth, I believe she produced the only studio album from the Germs, GI, back in 1979. Closing out American Idiot with the title track and one of the most blatant ripoffs on this list, it's 1998's Double Whiskey Coke Noise from Dillinger Four. Arguably the best known comparison on this list, and with good reason. It's hard to argue that this wasn't 100% completely lifted from Dillinger Four. Wrapping up this list with a song from each of the Trilogy albums that Green Day released in 2012. First up, it's Nuclear Family from Uno and Safe European Home from The Clash in 1978. Probably the one on this list that makes the most amount of sense. I mean, what punk band that came after The Clash wasn't inspired or influenced by The Clash? Next up from Dose is Stray Heart and Mother Mary from Green Day's side band, Foxborough Hot Tub. Sure, it's a bit of a stretch given that Foxborough Hot Tub is basically Green Day with a different name, but you can also look at it as a complete lack of originality and creativity. So desperate and uncreative that they have to rip off their own, albeit much lesser known, songs. Sure, I'm mostly kidding here, but if you really think about it, what I just said makes a lot of sense. Finally, it's Brutal Love from Trey and Sam Cooke's Bring It On Home to Me.
Old toys, this plastic heart, about leaving me behind.
I guess there's really no room for speculation as to whether or not this sounds similar, as Sam Cooke holds a writing credit on the Green Day song, but I gotta be honest, out of all of the ones on the list, this one feels like a complete stretch to me. Sure, there are some similarities and they share some similar vibes, I suppose, but I don't know. I guess I'm surprised that out of all of the ones on this list that we just did, this was the one where the original artist received a credit due to the nature of its similarity. To me, there's plenty of others that we just went over that sound way closer to whatever the song it was being compared to was. One thing I want to point out as we wrap this up, with the release of Saviors, Green Day now has, I believe, 14 studio albums, and this list included songs from 10 different Green Day albums. And in full transparency, I'm honestly not a huge Green Day guy. I like some of their stuff. I probably wouldn't even go see them if they were touring near me. But I'm sure there are plenty of others out there, perhaps even enough for a part 2 down the line. Let me know down in the comments which ones I missed. All right, though, I gotta run. My fiance is turning into a basket case, waiting for this nice guy to finish last, so I gotta go. But thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.